Welcome to episode 33 of the Tax Professionals podcast. In this episode, Martin Gilchrist, owner of successful accountancy practice Gilchrist & Co, provides his top secret tips to help you to become a better networker.
Welcome to the Tax Professionals podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you improve your tax career. Here's your host, Jack Bonehill.
Anxious, nervous, worried, the feelings likely to be felt before walking into a room of complete strangers. This is how Martin Gilchrist felt before his first networking event over 20 years ago. He considered not going because of this, but actually came away feeling energised and excited. Since that point, he's attended hundreds of networking events, honing his skills and approach, which is then used to help him to build a successful accountancy practice, Gilchrist & Co, with his wife in Northern Ireland. In this episode, Martin shares his experiences, breaks down his approach, and provides tips to help you to avoid common pitfalls and become better at networking. In particular, he tells us about his first ever networking event from around 5 minutes into the episode. He then lets us into his ingenious secret on how to spark conversations at networking events around 11 minutes 30, before moving on to what not to do at networking events at around 21 minutes 30. He gives his advice on how to overcome feeling anxious before events around 29 minutes 30. He talks about what a good networking event looks like in his opinion at around 31 minutes, before moving on to telling us about what his most important networking tip is to finish the episode at around 44 minutes. All these timings can be found in the show notes at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/TTPP33, or if you listen within a podcast app, then these should all be included within the details of the episode. Make sure that you don't miss out on any future episodes of the podcast that will help you to progress, develop and improve your tax career by subscribing in your podcast app of choice or signing up for email notifications at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/subscribe. These notifications will give you a brief summary of each episode so that you can decide if you want to listen. Episodes are bi-weekly and are released on Mondays. Just before we jump into the episode, I would like to mention the Tax Professionals Book Club, which is where we read business books relevant to working in tax and then discuss how to apply what we've learned to improve how we work. We've covered books on productivity, creating a career that you enjoy, and how to digest information more quickly. Upcoming books cover negotiation skills and how to build good habits and break bad ones. You can get further information by heading on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/book club. If there are no spaces left but you are interested, then please get in touch. Without further ado, let's get to it. So if you don't mind then Martin, just to start off today's episodes, could you tell us a little bit about what you do and I suppose how you got to this point in your career?
Absolutely. My name is Martin Gilchrist. I am the practice manager with Gilchrist & Co Chartered Accountants based in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I am also a shareholder in it, a 50% shareholder in the business because the business belongs to myself and my wife, Michelle Gilchrist, FCA, a qualified chartered accountant. We started the business 15 years ago because we wanted a livelihood. We wanted to start a business where it wasn't just about charging clients per the minute and not having personal relationships. We wanted to have a business where we knew our clients, that we had time for our clients, and we could provide exactly the services that they needed in exactly the way they wanted it so that we could enjoy our work. So that's who I am, that's where I work, and that's why I work here.
Good start. And so I think this is going to naturally lead on to what we want to talk about in this episode, because I'm sure networking was an important element of how you built your client base and got your business off the ground and to where it is today. And I know you've had a little bit of a joke beforehand, but a previous guest, James Perry, suggested you and basically described you as the king of networking. So it's not like you've got much expectation to live up to today now. But I'm sure we're going to get some useful tips and stories, experiences, etc. about networking today. So how much of an element do you think networking has played in your business getting to where it is today?
I think whether networking is the right word for it or not, but that sense of engaging with other people is so important for all of us. Whether you're in employment, whether you're in business, whether you're in big business, whether you're in small business, whether you're in the corporate environment, whether you're in the trades, it doesn't matter. No one can exist without a network, without connections, without engagement, without training, without support, without all that stuff that you gain through the process of networking. So if somebody said to me, what is the most important thing in your business? Is it your skill set? Is it the equipment you have in the office? Is it the team that you have around you? It's our network. It's the net people we are connected to. Whether it's like touch connection or we see them every day and work hand in glove with them, it doesn't matter. It's the network that we build around us that makes us the people that we are. It makes us the business that we are. And it gives us the credibility that we need to be able to go out and fight the good fight in the world.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting mindset then, actually. So I think that probably kind of explains why James saw you as such a good networker, because clearly that's kind of a philosophy that almost sits at the heart of how you operate and how you run your business.
Absolutely.
So I have had actually quite a few listeners that have been interested in networking for a long time. And a lot of my listeners, I would say, are between 0 and 5 years of starting their tax career. So maybe you don't remember this since it's probably some time ago now, but can you kind of remember the first ever networking event that you went to? And could you tell us a little bit about it if you can at this point?
I definitely can remember it. It's sort of like your first kiss. You're not going to forget it. If you're doing it for the very first time, it sticks in your mind. And it was a Belfast City Council business event. So they used to run what were called Belfast Entrepreneur Networking events. And it was down in the very grand Belfast City Hall, one of their grand suites. And I can remember driving down into Belfast, because at the time our office was down in Belfast, but for the first year or two we worked from home, which is where at the countryside. And I can remember driving the 20 miles down into Belfast. It took about 40 minutes. I think, I don't want to go to this. I don't want to go. And then sitting in the car parking space that I found, well, I don't want to go. There's going to be people I don't know, and it's going to be men in suits, and it's going to be people who all know each other. And what are they going to do? And what will I? And just all these reasons as to not to go. And then I nearly drove away without going to it. I was so, and I don't know why, but I was just so anxious and stressed and worried about what this event in Belfast City Hall with Belfast City councillors and all was going to be like, that I nearly drove away from it. And then I plucked up the courage, went into the building, and found my way up to the appropriate room, and it was a whole lot of men in suits and a couple of women standing about, and they all seemed to be in their own wee cliques and everything else. And I went, I'm standing here by myself. People are probably thinking I look odd. Why is nobody talking to that guy? And I seen some other guy about the same age as me, standing by himself across the room, and I thought, he's like me. He's no one else to talk to. And I just walked over and I says, how you doing? And he went, I'm all right. How you doing? And that was it. I had someone to talk to for the evening. And then other people came over and joined us, and he introduced me to people. And we sat down and we heard the presentations, and we got to ask questions. There was a question and answer session. And I think I remember being fed as well. There was canapes and drinks and all. And I left the place buzzing that evening with a pocket full of business cards, a load of contacts, and a whole lot of new friends that are still my friends and still my connections to this day, almost 20 years later.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to hear, actually, because you said you took away loads of business cards, and I kind of always think that the way to go when you go to these networking events isn't to speak to loads of people and just like make almost no impression. I would probably say it's better to speak to a few people and make really good impressions, try and build like the start of a good relationship with a few people. Obviously, that sounds like a different approach to what you took back then, but what do you think to kind of the two approaches?
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. You've hit the nail right in the head. There's two things that you don't do: go to a networking event to go. It doesn't matter how many people are going to be there. You don't go to a networking event to sell anything, because nobody's buying at a networking event. Everybody has a service or a product or something that they want to sell. They're not there generally, unless it's a trade conference or something, to buy. Most networking events, you're not there to buy anything. So you don't go there to sell, and you don't go to a networking event to have a meaningful conversation with 100 people or even 10 people. If you were at a networking event, if, for example, you go to conferences that last 2 days, you're not going to have more than 10 meaningful conversations over 2 days, never mind a 2-hour networking event. So when I go to a networking event, what I want to do is have 1 or 2 really good conversations. And I'm going to let you into a little secret about why then, if only all you need is 1 or 2 really good conversations, why go to an event where there's going to be 200 people? Why not just go to an event, just keep going to events where there's only going to be 10 or 15 people, where it would be easier to have that meaningful conversation. In the big events, there's a particular tactic or strategy that I would use, right? And I'm going to share that with you now. Don't tell anybody else, it's our secret between us, okay? And yes, I'll go in there, and I don't bring business cards with me. I don't have a business card. I don't think there's anything wrong with business cards. I have drawers full of other people's business cards, and I may look at them at some stage. I haven't looked at any in years, but I may look at them. So I don't have business cards. But what I try to do is make an impression. So if I'm talking to you, the first thing I want you to do is to remember me. And the way for you to remember me isn't for me to tell you anything. If I go over to you and start telling you something, my name's Martin Gilchrist, and we come from fantastic accountants, and we do tax returns for free, and blah, 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 whatever it is that I'm telling you, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. The important thing is if you ask me. So we're having a conversation and you ask me a question. I know you're interested, and then I can tell you. Unless you ask me, I will just listen. I'll engage in sensible conversation, but it'll be more important to me to listen and to find out stuff about you and find out how we match up and how we can be useful to each other and how we can help each other and what we might do together in the future and why I might want to talk to you again. I want to listen to you. But I will not really tell you too much about myself unless you're interested and ask a question. And if you're asking questions and you're interested, you're more likely to remember me. And if you remember me in 6 months from now when you need me, or you come across somebody else who needs me, because you remember me, you'll be able to reach out and talk to me. You just have to Martin Gilchrist into Google and you'll find me. I'm not too hard to find. Now, you can only have that conversation once or twice over the course of a networking event. So what do you do with the other 200 people into the room? And this is my trademark secret thing that I do. I'm talking nonsense. Obviously, it's not secret. And it's this. If you're at a conference with 200 people, there's going to be a stage or stages. There's going to be people, important people, up on the stage telling you and the whole audience all the important stuff that they know. They're going to be sharing their greater knowledge and the greater good to the rest of us minions sitting in the audience, which is all well and good. That's why we're there. Great. Okay, they get to say what they have to say. And at some stage, there usually is a question and answer session. Does anybody have any questions? And this is the bit where everybody shuffles about and looks at each other and all this type of stuff. And some people ask questions. What I do is I make absolutely sure that I'm the guy that gets to ask the very first question. And the way you do that is there's always some there's always some person, assistant walking about with a mic or mics. You look out for them and they're desperate to get that mic out of their hands. They don't be left. Does anybody got any questions? Standing with the mic, no one to give it to. So they're looking for people. And you catch their eye right at the start, right when they're looking for people. Make sure that they're standing beside you. Anybody have any questions? I already have the mic in my hand. And I stand up, whether I'm asked to stand up or not. So all of a sudden, in this seated audience of 200 people, this guy has stood up. I take a breath. I don't start talking right away. That gives everybody a chance to look at me. So who's this guy? And I go, my name is Martin Gilchrist. And I'm here from Gilchrist & Co. Chartered Accountants. And my question is something couched in what our clients would be interested in relating to what they are. So the presentation or the guys on the stage would have been talking about something And I ask the question that my clients, that my Facebook followers, that my LinkedIn followers would ask if they were in the same situation. Make it easy to answer. Make it, make the guys on the stage look good. You don't want to be offended now, but you're not coming in there as a political agenda or anything. You just want to stand up, say your name, say where you're from, ask a sensible question, and sit down. At that point, all 200 people in the room know that you're there, know that Martin Gilchrist from Gilchrist & Co. Chartered Accountants is sitting over there. If I was the second or third question, no one would care. But if you're the first question, everybody looks at you. So that's my 2 tips for going to a networking event with 200 people. That's how I approach them. I don't bring business cards. I don't necessarily look for business cards, although I will take them. I think they're useful. But that's my strategy for big events.
That's a pretty interesting approach, actually. So after you've asked this question, and say the Q&A session's finished, do you then find that more people come over to you and then start up a conversation with you?
Absolutely. So what happens then is that people know you're there. So there'll be in a room of that size. So Northern Ireland's a small place, and I already have, through my networking activities, I wouldn't say I'm the king of networking. As a matter of fact, I would never call myself that. I think James says that tongue in cheek. It comes across as, I'll not say cheesy, but James means it with all the best intentions, but he also says a little bit tongue in cheek as well. I'm certainly not the king of networking, and I have no particular expertise. This is all my own experience from years and years of growing a successful business, of things that have actually worked for me. So yes, you ask your question, you sit down, and then what happens is the event ends, or you go to dinner, or there's a breakout, and I have, and this is the truth. I'm not exaggerating this in any way. I have never had a situation where someone hasn't come over to me, or 2 or 3 people haven't come over to join me after doing that and said, Martin, I seen you ask a question in an event 6 months ago, or Martin, I've been following you on Facebook for 2 years, but I've never had a chance to meet you, or Martin, my friend knows you and they mentioned that you blah, blah, blah. People always come over. And the best thing is, you've really hit the jackpot in a networking event is when 2 or 3 people come over at the same time. Because what happens is the first person that gets to you gets to speak to you. That's natural politeness. Other people will hang back. But if I see that there's because the sort of loiter, people want to speak to you, the sort of loiter, I don't let them loiter. What I'll do is I will immediately bring them into the conversation. I'll say, you want to speak? Do you mind, whoever I'm speaking, do you mind if Johnny comes and join us? And what I try to do then is have 3 or 4 of us, whoever comes together, let them all join the conversation and find out why they came over, unless it was some sort of private, somebody came over and went, Martin Gilchrist, I want you to sort out my tax issue for me.
Yeah.
It's never about that.
Yeah.
Rarely, and sometimes it's people to go, oh yeah, I want you to use the price, but it's very rarely about that. It's usually they just want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And if you can start a conversation with 2 or 3 others, it becomes more valuable because you're introducing them to each other. And see, when you introduce people, not only are you expanding their network, but you're strengthening your own network and your own credibility. People love to be introduced. And if you're introducing people, you're strengthening your credibility as well. So does it work? Does it bring people over your way? Absolutely it does.
Yeah. The thing is, when you're inviting people in as well, I think probably what most people find the hardest at networking events is starting that conversation, and you've made that part of it very easy for them by inviting them over and join them into the conversation. And you might not say that you're the king of networking, you might not like that phrase, but this is such a simple thing, but it's almost like genius at the same time, because it's not a difficult thing to do necessarily. But once you've explained it to me and I've thought about it, of course it's going to work, of course it's going to make an impact, and of course it's going to make people remember you, which is obviously great. One thing I just wanted to come back to a bit, you were saying you don't kind of talk about yourself until you're asked to kind of say, this is my name, this is where I work, etc. So just on the flip side, do you think it's damaging to the conversation or to building that relationship if you start by going over to someone and saying those things? Could it be actually detrimental to the conversation?
The most important thing when you go over to someone is to feel comfortable and to feel confident. And you do whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable or confident. But if you look nervous or reticent or cold or unapproachable or dull or stressed, people will pick up on that immediately. So you need to have, well, this is my view. I'm going to say this once to preface everything that I say. This is only my view. What do I know? I'm no expert. I haven't read books or written books or studied or anything else. But in my view, the most important thing that you can do when you're walking over to someone is find an excuse to smile. Now, you should have a smiley demeanor anyway. That helps. And I hope I do have a grumpy face, but generally I think I have a smiley face. And I'll not go into the whole story about how this came about and the conversation, because there's a 15-minute monologue on the power of a smile that I could go into. But essentially this guy who I knew told me once, he says, Martin, see if you smile at someone, just watch them. Look at them while you smile. Doesn't matter if it's a fake smile. Doesn't matter if you tell them beforehand, if you warn them what it is that you're going to do. But walk over to somebody and smile. And if you smile at them, within a couple of seconds, they will start smiling. As a matter of fact, they can't not smile. If you say to them, I'm going to smile at you, try not to smile. They struggle not to smile.
Well, I'm smiling right now.
Yeah, exactly. There's something in human nature. I don't know where I don't know anything about why it happens, but this guy explained it to me. And every single time I've looked at somebody when I'm smiling, they smile back. Now, when you smile, it automatically lifts you. You know, they say to people, if you're feeling down, find an excuse to laugh, find an excuse to smile, and it will actually make you feel better. So your mind reacts to what your body's doing. So if they're smiling at me, they're feeling good. That's a great way to start a conversation. Make somebody feel good before you've even started. And if you can make them feel good by smiling, you're on to the winner right away. Now, if you're looking around the room and you see miserable people, don't go near them. Let them stand over there. If you think somebody's having a bad day and maybe needs a bit of help, absolutely go and be a shoulder or whatever the case may be. But you know what? You don't have to go and pull trouble upon yourself.
Yeah.
Go and find those people that are like you. And if you're a positive demeanor, a go-getter, ambitious type of character, go and find those people in the room and go over and start that positive conversation.
Yeah, makes sense. So obviously smiling is going to help you become more approachable. Would you think there's anything that people do in particular that makes them seem unapproachable and, are things to try and avoid doing if possible? Does anything spring to mind?
The person you're talking to has to be the most important person in the room. That's golden rule number one. If I'm at a networking event or any event and somebody speaks to me or introduces themselves to me, they become, in that moment, the most important person to me in that room. They have put their neck on the line, they've put themselves out there, they've come over, they've risked my, me being cynical or nasty or whatever the case may be. They've come over for a reason. And no matter who they are, and whether I think they might be helpful to me or not, or they're too thin or too fat or too short or whatever the reason may be, I don't care. They're the most important person in the room. And the worst thing you can do at a networking event, in my view, is if somebody's speaking to you, look over their shoulder to someone else or unnaturally cut short that conversation because there's someone more important that they have to be talking to. I don't care if ex-President Barack Obama walks into the room. The person that you're speaking to should stay your attention until such a time as that conversation naturally ends or comes to a polite end. And you should never feel anybody left. That person just dumped me like a bag of potatoes because you know what? They will never, ever forget it. Never, ever forget it, ever. And your credibility with that person will be, they might forgive it. They might move on from it. They might not worry about it at all, but they'll not forget it.
Mm-hmm.
So if the one thing you should never do when you're at a networking event is look over the person's shoulder you're talking to, trying to judge who the more important or more exciting or tallest or best looking or whoever it is person is in the room, because you want to get and talk to them, because they're not important. You're not talking to them yet, and they may not want to talk to you anyway.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
So that's my golden rule.
Good points. I'm going to add as well, actually, one of my pet peeves is when people pull out their phone when you're speaking to them. I imagine that must be up there on the list as well.
Well, that's not, if you think the person isn't even as important as the person on the phone, you know, that's, if you pull out your phone, what you're saying to the person in front of you is, you're not important. Or the other people at that table, you're not as important as something else going on somewhere else. You know, you don't matter. It's just bad manners. So yeah, it's the same principle, but you're absolutely right.
I'm just going to come back to earlier when you kind of said before these Q&A sessions and stuff, you might try and speak to like one or two people. Do you kind of have any approach in terms of what two people you go over and speak to, or do you literally just completely chance it and go over and speak to any two people?
My life's simple. You know, I am a simple man with simple tastes. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble. I don't go on foreign holidays. I don't have fancy clothes. I have two things, and obviously setting aside family and my wife and kids and all, but there's two things that are important to me. In work, it's enjoying my work, and outside of work, we have a wee Volkswagen camper van, my wife and I, and we like tootling about the countryside in that. So why am I telling you all of this? In my work life, I'm not worried. I have to make a living, but I'm not worried about money. You know, I'm not worried about power. I'm not worried about influence. I'm not worried about growth. These things, I think, if you do a good job, come to you anyway. I'm worried about good people. And what I want to do is have around me, I suppose if I had done any reading in relation to networking, one of the most important things I read was there's a guy called Professor Dunbar, and there's a number called the Dunbar number. Have you ever heard of that?
No, is that the Dun or the Dumb bar number? Sorry.
Dunbar, Dunbar.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard of it.
Essentially, Professor Dunbar he was a sociologist, and he undertook research into the maximum number of people that any one individual can have a meaningful social connection to. And it turns out that's about 150. And if you think about your life, your cousins, your friends, people you went to school with, who are you still connected to? Where are they now? What are they doing? Who are they married to? People that you know at that level, it's probably about 150 or less. Well, what I want to do is to find the 150 or whatever people, not who are going to sell me services, not who are going to buy my services necessarily, not who are going to give me loads of useful information, but the 150 people that when I go out into the world or into a networking event or meet them in business or invite them to a dinner, whatever it may be, that when I see them, I'm excited to see them. And we all know that type of person. Our friends, if you've got a really good friend and you haven't seen them for 3 or 4 weeks, and they ring you up and they say, you're coming down to the pub, how do you feel? You feel great. And I have a lot of people like that in my life that if I met them in a restaurant, if I met them in a hotel reception, if I met them walking down the street, if I met them at a networking event, I would be delighted to see them because I know they're good people, and I know they're positive, and I know they make me feel good, and I know that they've done good stuff for me in the past. I know that they'll help me if I ask them to. Those are the type of people that I want to have around me. So when you ask me, when I go to a networking event, am I selective about who I talk to? No, I'm not. Because you never know who that person is until you meet them. They could be someone in retirement. I have lots of friends who are retired. They could be someone who's just starting out in business. I have lots of people just starting out in business. They could be established professionals. I have lots of friends who are established professionals. But it's not what they do that's important. It's their attitude. It's what they bring to the table in terms of personality, emotional intelligence, generosity, humility, all the good stuff that you want to see in people. And you don't know that until you've had a conversation.
So by the sounds of it, then, I think you probably go to all these conversations with a completely open mind, almost hoping that there'll be one of these 150 people. And if they're not, never mind. But if they are, absolutely great kind of thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Completely different perspective to what I was thinking I was going to get an answer to that question then. But I think it's quite a refreshing way to do it. You're not going out there with any kind of ill intention or selfish reasons to speak to these people. You're going out there just to find people that make you feel good and you can have a good relationship with.
I think you get back what you put out into the world to a large extent. So if I went out with a strategy and a tactic, now I suppose I do have a strategy and a tactic. I know the type of people I want to spend time with. So that's the strategy and the tactic.
Yeah.
But if I try to be selective, I want to go out and I want to target people with an income of over £100,000 a year who have been in professional practice for 5 years or more. My ideal client, if I went out with that strategy, first of all, I'd limit the number of people I got to talk to. Secondly, the people I did get to talk to probably wouldn't be as nice as the people that have in my network now. And thirdly, it'd just be exhausting keeping track of all that.
Yeah, absolutely. You did touch upon one thing right at the start when you were telling the story about your first networking events, saying that you felt kind of anxious before going into that event. I mean, why do you think it is that people feel anxious before going to these networking events? And is there anything that you now do that helps you overcome that?
Yeah, it's absolutely natural to feel anxious. It's inbred human nature to go into a crowd of people where you don't know anybody. It must be a natural instinct, almost an animal instinct, to go into that different tribe, a different environment. It's your subconscious must identify risk in that somewhere. I assume. What do I know? But I think all of us feel that. Even if you were asked to one of these formals or a dinner dance or you're meeting a friend in a new pub, we all feel that sense of a little bit of, am I dressed properly? Who else is going to be there? Will the night go well? What will be expected of me when I get there? It's natural. It's natural for anybody to feel that way. And if anybody does feel that way and it's putting them off, you just have to realize that everybody feels that. Maybe I'm wrong, Jack. Maybe you don't feel it.
No, I absolutely do. It's much easier talking. I'm much better with people over like Teams and stuff. But I think when the thing with networking events is when they're in there's a group of people already and everyone's in a group apart from you and you've got to try and get into it. I think that's the most anxious thing for me.
Yeah. And it's absolutely normal. And everybody feels it. Not everybody talks about it. Now, I came along here tonight and I was so anxious before I came in and I nearly wasn't going to come in. And nobody says that, but everybody feels it. And there's some people, I suppose the more you do it, the less anxious become, and it becomes a joy. It becomes a pleasure. I really enjoy networking, and because I know a lot of people now because I've done it so much. But it is normal to feel anxious. How do you get past that? That's how do you deal with anxiety or fear or trepidation in life generally. You just have to be brave. And you just say to yourself that this is important. This is going to be worthwhile. And the thing is, not every single networking event is going to be brilliant. Some of them are going to be rubbish. You're going to go to some networking events and you're going to talk to the wrong people by accident. You're going to bump into one of those grumpy people that with low emotional intelligence who thinks the event should be all about them or they haven't sold enough. So that's going to happen. You just have to take that on board. But it's going to be worth it. That's the important thing. Over time, if you get out there and you put yourself out there enough and you're genuine about your reasons for doing it, you're decent, you're generous, you're friendly, you make sure you're approachable, you look out for the needs of others, you try to be helpful, you try to be useful, and you genuinely try to build a meaningful network for the benefit of everybody that's involved in your network.
Yeah.
You're going to end up in a situation like what me and Michelle have now, where you have an incredibly successful business, where you don't have to advertise, where you don't have to sell anything, where you barely have to tell people what you do, where clients line up at the door because of your credibility and reputation and the knowledge that people know that you are the appropriate person for them. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, you mentioned that obviously not all networking events you go to are going to be good, and of course that's going to be the case as is with everything in life. Do you kind of cherry pick at all the events that you go to and try and pick out ones which are good, or do you think that all networking events have the potential to be good and you kind of won't know until you go there?
I cherry pick or cherry avoid the ones that I don't want to go to.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily that I pick the good ones. I try to avoid the bad ones. So if I've been, It's not even that I avoid the bad ones. That's not fair. There's any event where anybody's put effort into putting it on, has its worth and its value. And it wouldn't be fair to call any event a bad event. But there's some that just aren't for me, because of the nature of the way that they're hosted or held or put together. It doesn't fit my conversational, relationshipy, connect me way of getting on. It might suit other people, but it doesn't suit me. So, for example, BNI. BNI is a well-established way of networking. It's a very structured way of networking. You get up early in the morning and you meet people and you build relationships, and those people then go out and get you referrals and you get them referrals. Doesn't work for me. I don't like that structured, obligatory, I'll give you a referral and you better get me a referral back type. It's even though it's not like that, but I would avoid BNI events, not because there's anything wrong with them, because it's what's wrong with me. They don't suit my way of working. I tend not to go to accountancy events because I'm an accountant. What am I going to learn? I meet with a lot of accountants. I have a lot of, for example, I met up for a coffee just last Thursday, with a lovely accountant who has just started out in business. She had a career beforehand, but she's just started her own practice. And Janet Jensen, fantastic woman. And there's also Neil Caldwell, who was a financial advisor. And myself and Michelle met them down in the Crown Plaza Hotel in Belfast. And we were talking for an hour and a half and had a great time. None of that was about business. She was accountant. I wasn't going to buy anything off her, and she wasn't buying anything off me. It was about relationships and credibility that comes from relationships and learning from each other. And I found out the type of accountancy she does. She found out the type of accountancy we do. We don't step on each other's toes, which is great. But that's what it's about.
Yeah, makes absolute sense. I mean, that it makes sense as well why the BNI ones don't work for you, because your philosophy, as you've said, for networking events isn't to go there and win work per se, which is exactly what BNI events are about. And for you, it's about relationships. So that makes sense. Do you think there's any kind of typical features of events that are good, that will kind of indicate that this is going to be a good event to network with people?
I'm going to tell you about a brilliant event.
Yeah, you go for that.
I'm going to tell you about a brilliant event that's happening tomorrow night.
And it's Belfast. One that you're hosting.
I can't tell you too much about it because it's a private event. It's a private dinner. Okay. And the reason I made it private is because I want it to be personal. Okay. And why do I want to make it personal? Because I want everybody that comes along to that event to feel like they can speak openly and with confidence with people that they know or will get to know over the course of the event, and that, that information, almost like Chapel House rules, the information that's shared in the room won't go any further. Not that we're going to be talking about anything illicit or particularly secret, but, people need confidence to relax. And the structure of the event will be as follows. People will be expected to turn up for 6:00. And the golden rule is you're there on time. That's the first sign of respect, that you turn up when you're supposed to turn up. There'll be about 20 minutes of networking, and then the host. So basically what I do is when I host an event or when I put on an event, I never do it by myself. I always ask good people to help me. I form a team. Now, nobody's getting paid. I'm not getting paid for this event, and everybody's paying for their own dinner. Nobody's making any nobody's making any money for this. So everybody's there of their own free will. They're all paying for their own dinner. And I've got a team of volunteers to help me with do this. The first guy that will stand up, JP, from Core Impact, he will effectively act as a host, because there's going to be a series of people talking throughout the night, and he makes sure everything stays on time. But he will set out the rules. The rules are that your phones are turned off, that you keep to your speaking time, because everybody has a speaking slot of about 5 minutes or so, that you keep your speaking time. And that when other people are speaking, that you listen. Just pay them the courtesy of listening. And you may go, well, why would you have to say that to a room full of adult professionals? You don't have to. Everybody knows that that is simply good manners. But the reason for saying it is so that everybody has confidence that that's what's expected. it doesn't matter if everybody knows the rules. What everybody wants to be is confident that there are rules, that there is a structure, that they can relax and they can feel comfortable. And then we'll have a guy called Kevin, who's a great guy, a very creative sort of character. And he's sort of like master of ceremonies, and he will give a 15-minute presentation of why we're all there. Why are we all in this room this evening? Why did Martin decide to have an event where he brings 10 good guys together and hosts a dinner? And he gives an explanation of that. And then over the course of the night, everybody around the table has to give a 5-minute talk. 5 minutes isn't very long. So it's a very sharp, very defined explanation of something that's important to them. And the one thing I said was, it has to be something you're passionate about, something that means something to you. And these will be split up into, I suppose, 20-minute sections, and they'll be then divided by starter, main course, and dessert, where people can just relax and talk and take it easy. I will do a final closing statement, effectively talking about the importance of influence and how to inspire, motivate, and influence people, and why it's important to try and do that. There'll be a closing summary by Kevin, and then there'll be networking. Mm-hmm. That, to me, is pretty much a perfect networking event.
Yeah. I kind of like the idea, actually, of going out there and talking about something you're passionate about, because if you go out there and talk about your business or something, people aren't going to really connect with that, I imagine. Whereas if you go out there and you talk about something that you're passionate about, and a person on the other end of that is also passionate about it, I imagine that's a good start to building a relationship straight away.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And it starts, if you talk about something, it gives like that. So if I came on, like talked about tax, we do self-assessment tax returns, and we look after capital allowances and disposal of commercial properties or whatever it may be, go, no, I don't need that right now in their heads.
Yeah.
And if you go out and you say, look, we run 2 networking events or dinners or whatever over the course of each year, just to bring people together. That's something that we do because we enjoy it, because we're passionate about it, because we believe it's important. That will come across. People have empathy, they have emotional intelligence. They can tell when somebody's passionate about something. And then they know that they can come over and talk to you about that because you want to.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk to somebody about capital allowance and the disposal of commercial property at a networking event. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Maybe I should. Not really. I want to talk about how their son's doing at university, or where they see their business being in the next 10 years, or whatever. Those exciting things. And if you set the agenda in that way, it allows people to be passionate, and it engenders conversation.
Yeah. I would say probably the biggest thing that I've taken away from this conversation is forget kind of that this is a networking event, kind of forget that word almost, and go there almost trying to find people that you like and get on with. And if you go with that intention, it's almost as if good things are bound to happen.
Exactly. And it's not almost as if. I can absolutely guarantee, I can warranty the fact that good things will happen, because that's what's happened in my life, and I see it happening to lots of people that have been along to my networking events and to other networking events as well. There's a whole community. Like, for example, there's going to be 16 people at this dinner tonight. Every single one of them is there because I met them at networking.
Yeah.
Now, imagine, Jack, if I had rung you up before James had introduced us and said, Jack, my name's Martin Gilchrist. You don't know me, but I'm having a dinner down in the Hilton Hotel in Belfast on the 25th of August. There's going to be 16 of us there. I would like you to join me. You would go, I don't know who you are. It's £35 for the dinner. That sounds like a lot. You may come, if you're an adventurous sort, but you're more likely not to want to come. But the fact now that we have had a conversation, because someone from my network, James is actually going to be at the dinner tomorrow. He's one of the guys that's going to be there. Because someone from my network mentioned me in conversation, he had no reason to. I don't pay him. He's not a client of mine. He's a friend of mine, but I met him through networking. And he felt that it was worthy and that you would benefit from our conversation. I would say now, Jack, that if there was another, I'm not sure where you're based, but if you were in and near Belfast and I was having another dinner in 6 months' time, and I invited you down. Now you know what the dinners are about. I'd say there's a better chance you'd be there.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. This will just make all perfect sense. I know we've talked about quite a lot today, and you might have already covered some of these already, but I think what it'll be good to kind of almost finish off the episode now. There's kind of 2 points really. The first one is if you could just share with us kind of your main few tips in like a summary, just to kind of reinforce the key points that you want people to take away from what we spoke about today. And then also whether you think networking is going to change post the pandemic, and what your views are around that, and whether there'll be any different approach that there is to be taken. So should we just start quickly with your networking tips in summary?
Okay. It all boils down to one word. Everything you do in your networking should boil down to one word, and that is genuine. Are you being genuine in your conversations, in your motivations, in the direction that you're trying to take people? What is the reason for being there? Is the reason that you're doing all this genuine? And what does genuine mean? It means honesty. It means openness. It means clarity. It means being straightforward. Genuine is the crystallization of all those good things. And so long as you're genuine about what it is you're doing, it's going to be hard for you to make a mistake in networking. So fundamentally, when you're out in the world, when you're presenting yourself and your business and your raison d'etre, your reason for being there, try and be genuine.
And then I'm just interested as well, because obviously we have had the pandemic now, and we're kind of almost coming out the other side of that now. Do you think that networking is going to change? Do you think it's going to become online in some forms? And, I suppose, where do you see networking going now?
Everything always changes and everything always stays the same. Yes, things will change. Yes, things will stay the same. I don't know what the big changes will be. I think, yes, a lot more people are using Skype and stuff, and a lot more people are using technology to communicate and all this good stuff. But at the same time, it's hard to beat a handshake, a smile, the smell of a good coffee, the taste of a good canapé. We all having a reason to go somewhere, all that good stuff. I think that will come back, and people want it to come back as soon as possible. And certainly, when I was inviting people to my event, the one for tomorrow, the problem wasn't getting enough people to attend. The problem was who to select to go for this one, because we literally had one just before it was called the James Street South event, just before it was in February 2020, and then lockdown came, and lockdown is just ending now, and this will be our first event after lockdown, and we had no issues whatsoever getting people to join us for that. So I think there'll be changes in relation to technology and stuff, but fundamentally it'll stay the same. People having conversations, finding connections, finding reasons to work together, working out whether or not they like each other, and then based upon that, building their own credibility and deciding on the credibility of others, and then using that as a basis to make decisions going forward.
Good. Well, thank you very much anyway, Martin, for all the stories and the tips in this episode. I've taken away some personally as well that I'm definitely going to try and apply. As nervous as I will be if I go to stand up and ask the first question at an event, I'll be certain to give it a go when I next get the chance. So thank you very much for coming on today.
I enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope some of it was useful.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe in your podcast app or sign up for email notifications to make sure that you don't miss any future episodes that will help you to progress, develop, and improve your tax career. You can do this at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/subscribe, and these notifications will give you a brief summary of each episode, which are bi-weekly and are released on Mondays. Show notes for this episode, which include where you can find out more about Martin, can be found at thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com/TTPP33. And if you're interested in finding more about the book club, head on over to thetaxprofessionalspodcast.com taxpro.co.uk/book club. But that's it for this episode. I hope you liked the episode and have taken away some useful points to help you progress, develop and improve your tax career. Until next time.